Welcome back. We're going back again in the Henry Segura case as to what was heard earlier today. There seems to be a back and forth in the prosecution's rebuttal case trying to fill in some of the holes and gaps that were made by the defense. Let's take a listen to this testimony where they're saying that Henry Segura knew things about the murder that he could not have known unless he was there. Let's take a listen to how that played out. All right, Kirk, I know we've only got you for a few minutes. You've got students that are looking for you to impart some wisdom on them, but while we've got you here, let's steal some of that wisdom. I love it as a defense attorney when prosecutors stretch themselves beyond what they can prove. But here it doesn't make sense. I don't see why they need to explore that avenue. They could have just said, hey, this is what he said. He's shifty, he's lying, that's it. But my understanding is that they're arguing that he knew things about the murder that he could not have known unless he did the crime. But then you listen to the interrogation and those pieces seem to be missing. So why?
So I would have to agree with Gene here, following that same line of reasoning, that the defense's primary argument is that the physical evidence stacks up to the point where he could not have done this alone. And there were so many things that went on there at the crime scene. So the prosecution, in plugging those holes, well, let's kind of move away from the physical evidence a little bit and let's look at the defendant. Isn't this a guilty person? I'm going to show you everything about this defendant to show you that this person is the type of person that's guilty and he certainly did this. And I think that's where they're going. This is what they're relying on here.
Yeah, Gene, we have seen this, and I'm sure you've seen this in trials. We've seen it in the OJ trial. We've seen it in politics. If you cannot attack the facts, you attack the person. It's a very skillful and very artful technique. Is that what you're kind of seeing here?
Absolutely. And this is a classic case because I've had acquittals where you overpromise in your opening and underperform. And as a prosecutor, it's an awful feeling. And what I see in this case is overpromising in the opening. And then in their closing, I can't wait to hear it because they're not going to match. They're not going to be bookends. There's going to be a deficiency.
Yeah, Eklund, I love doing exactly what Gene is saying. Like I shave off the beard when I'm in trial. I look a little bit younger. I look like I'm 21, 22, doing an attempted murder. And I just kind of like, hey guys, I'm gonna try my best and do my best. Because you always, as a lawyer, are supposed to underperform undersell and overperform, right?
That's right.
When you get that mixed up, and I'm not just talking about this case, but in general, as a defense attorney, as a prosecutor, when you get those mixed up, how bad is that on summation or during the conclusion of the case?
It's terrible. It's terrible. Because here's the thing, some prosecutors forget that they are ministers of justice. You are supposed to stand for justice. You don't have a side. As a prosecutor, guess what? It's state versus the defendant. The defendant is part of the state. You don't have a side. Your side is justice. This don't look like justice. How is he supposed to kill all those people in that amount of time? How is a jury supposed to know what a man is supposed to find, how a man's supposed to act when he finds out that his baby mother's house has been murked? We don't know. They made no sense. The prosecution was overzealous, but most importantly, there is a murder suspect that they need to be investigating, and it is not Mr. Segura. And that's what I would just stop right now and throw in the towel if I was them.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how the defense plays this out. We want to show you more testimony from the victim's sister who testified in this trial as well.
Law enforcement was on scene for quite a while on the 20th, correct? The day the bodies were found?
Yes.
And we're canvassing the neighborhood, talking to people, right?
Yes, they was.
Okay. So you're not aware of what every officer on scene was doing and what they were telling everybody, correct?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. And you only know about what they told you, is that right?
I only know what they came and told me and my family.
Okay. So do you agree that it would be impossible for anybody to know that law enforcement couldn't initially find the third child victim unless law enforcement had spread that information around?
I would object to speculation.
I think it assumes facts. She hasn't said that they didn't tell her they were missing one child. She said she heard that.
Let me clarify that then. Did law enforcement tell you that they were unable to find the third child victim?
Yes, they did tell us that.
Okay. And later on that same day, you found out that they found the third child victim, Javante, underneath his sisters, correct?
Well, yeah, they told us that the third child was in the house after they cleared the crime, after they went in and cleared the crime scene, but that was later that day. That wasn't like when we was out there, because after the crime scene got there and they told us that they was gonna clear the house out and bring out all the bodies, they asked us to leave. So me and my mama left. If I could recall, my brother stayed there. To my and Tanaya daddy, Tony, he stayed there. He wouldn't leave. So it was a few family members that stayed there. But I know that that day, me, my mama, and my stepdaddy, all of us left because they asked us, they wanted us to leave just so they can remove the bodies from the house.
So that's a yes. On the 20th, at some point, law enforcement told you that the third child victim, Javante, was discovered underneath
but we
his...
still did not know how they was how they was died, how it was where they were located at. They didn't tell us anything about where they was located at.
Your testimony was that they didn't tell you he was located under his sisters? Your testimony
Well,
is they
that
didn't
was
tell you
later on. That was later, but that wasn't at the time of the crime scene. They didn't disclose that information when we was there. We didn't talk to anybody. I know for a fact that none of my sisters and brothers and none of us went to nobody's house. We didn't talk to nobody that day but the law enforcement officer.
So there you have, you know what? Let's go. Gene Rossi, we'll start with you. You summarize and give me your impression of that testimony.
Very confusing. I don't know where that cross-examination was going. I got to say the prosecutor was not asleep at the switch. It is speculation. I don't understand it.
Yeah, Eklund Mercy, same thing. I think that was a proper objection, and I'm not sure whether or not they really solved it going forward.
Oh, no, it was, he knew the objection was coming. You just want the question to come out. He basically just wanted to come out that the officers were the one informing people of the third body being under the sisters and under the twin sisters, meaning that if there's any evidence that the prosecution may say that, he knew of how the murders happened, he's going to say that, hey, the reasons why he knew is because the officers were out there just telling the information, just giving people the information.
Yeah, so it's one of those you can't unring a bell type of thing. So you ask the question knowing it might be objected to, and even the judge might come back and say, hey, you've got to disregard that question, disregard the answer, but you never really do disregard it. I mean, we're human beings. It's always going to muddle somewhere back in the brain. Professor Kirk, I know you've got to leave us, but I want to give you the final word. What are you making of this as it comes up? Because for me, when I think of a prosecution's case, it's got to be as crystal clear as a cathedral window. I've got to be able to see through it. And the second you start throwing mud on it, even just a little, and that's all the defense really got to do, just throw a little mud on that window so you can't really see it through. That's reasonable doubt. That makes it harder for the prosecution. So is this kind of cleansing that glass window so they can see through it, or is it still a little muddled?
No, I think it's still a little muddled. I would suspect that the prosecutors here in some office have all these facts and all this evidence that the defense is setting forth on a blackboard, and they're just attempting to knock each one down. And it's very difficult. So I haven't seen anything that really just refutes everything yet.
Yeah, one more, because it's funny, because a professor told me this. As a defense attorney, and that's why I always loved being a defense attorney, sometimes we thought about it as like a row of dominoes, right? The prosecution's got to carefully put each one there, and then they start the case and they knock one down. And if you remember as a kid, it's just boom, 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 boom. But as a defense attorney, sometimes you just got to take one domino out at a time, and when they try to knock it over, if they all don't knock over, then that's not a guilty verdict then, right? It seems like I see a few dominoes missing.
Oh, there are many dominoes missing here. So the prosecution has a job to put a lot of dominoes back here, without a doubt.
Yeah, so so we're just gonna, I guess in the rebuttal then, the question is, can they put those dominoes back and make it work?
Well, I would think that the more evidence and testimony the prosecution can discredit from the defense's case, the better opportunity they have.
And I think there is an opportunity there for the prosecution, because a lot of what I would perceive to be the star witnesses are people who have credibility issues. I don't mean to be disparaging against people with mental health issues or disabilities, but Carlos Santos, the mental health issues and the grandiose personality that they said that he had, maybe that's just him lying. Like, could that be putting a domino back in for the prosecution?
Well, it could be, but also Carlos Santos is a leader of a gang. So he's supposed to look like that. As a matter of fact, he wouldn't be credible if he didn't look like that on the stand.
Exactly. Kirk, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for being with us.
pleasure.
We're going to continue with more of this case and others after the break.